Halo 5 gets a bad rap, and I'm not here to say that it didn't deserve that reception. I think by now we're all more than aware that Halo 5 could have and should have been better in a lot of different ways. But I've been condemning this game for so long now that whenever I hear any kind of criticism towards it, it just seems like such a blur, because a lot of the time it's the same old that we all know of but still continue to talk about. We get stuck into the habit of saying the same thing almost on repeat like a broken record over and over and over again until we forget why the hell we were even talking about it in the first place. I made a video about things that I disliked in Halo a few weeks ago, and while I don't think that I'm ready to make a follow-up or an expansion to that stuff yet, I do think that I am ready for an open discussion for once about things that Halo 5 did well, or at the very least, it heavily improved on since Halo 4. Your list of likes may be longer or shorter than mine, and that's okay, but before we continue, I would like to address that one really angry guy in the comments section that tells me that Halo 5 stinks. Try to be a bit more constructive about the game if you can. And if you would like to see a video on things that I disliked in Halo 5, then I could always do that too in the interest of being fair and balanced. I'm always open to suggestions, so meh. Anyway, here's a short list of things that I liked in Halo 5. Number 1. The Promethean Knights. I've talked about this on occasion in general conversation and in comment sections at times, but back when Halo 4 released, we were introduced to the Promethean Knights, and I was both excited and extremely underwhelmed. The problem that I had with them was both from a gameplay and a logic perspective. Let me explain. The Forerunners had a system that categorizes different civilizations based on how technologically advanced they were or are. For example, humanity would be on the low end of Tier 2, while the Forerunners themselves were a Tier 1 civilization. So in my opinion, that should have been represented in gameplay somewhat. Knights should be efficient, lethal, and tough. They look like they weigh a considerable amount. In fact, they weigh just under half a ton. When they walk by, you should hear their footsteps beating against the floor. When you melee them, you should hear the bash of your fist hitting solid metal, and when they die, they should crumple to the floor, crashing down under their own weight. But they don't. We all experience gameplay differently, and the feeling is unique. But when I went against the Knights in Halo 4, they felt almost weightless. Their size and strength felt completely underplayed, even on harder difficulties. And sometimes when beaten down, they lightly fly off into the distance. I realize that the Master Chief is strong, but come on, give me a break. But in Halo 5, they were done right to me. Gone was that stupid teleportation ability leading to frustrating gameplay moments. I do kinda miss the Night Charge, but that's okay. You can no longer pull out any old weapon and just fire away at it until the Knight dies. Well, you could, but you would be wasting an awful lot of ammo. Now, we have weak points requiring a tiny bit of precision to shoot off, followed by an exposed core that will cause critical damage when hit. The fact that the Knights now react to having part of their carapace shot off felt so rewarding to me, and best of all, the first time I played Halo 5, I had no idea that these changes were a thing, so the first Knight encounter came as a shock to me when I charged into combat ready to beat down Mecha Quasimodo, only to get this loud bash when my melee attack did virtually no damage. We saw this change happen in the Hunters too. They went from enemies that you could take down with relative ease to being an actual threat, and I really think that Halo has benefited from this change. Even if the Knights don't come back in Infinite, chances are the Hunters will, and so long as they keep this brutal style of gameplay, I'd be very happy. Now, some people would say that it just makes the enemies feel like bullet sponges, and I'm inclined to agree if we're talking about Warzone Firefight, but in the campaign, no, I think that this was a welcome change, and I hope that it comes in the future. Number 2. Forge. I cannot forge a map in Halo 5 to save my life. I have spoken to plenty of forgers who say that the new mode is very easy to get a grasp on once you learn the basic controls, but I cannot get my head around it, and at this point, it's too late for me to try. But oh my damn, can you make some amazing looking things in Halo 5's Forge. And I'm not talking about limiting it to standard multiplayer maps. People have built hilarious new game types, I've seen incredible remakes, I've seen Rube Goldberg machines that blew me away, and insanely detailed statues, just to name a few. We've had some crazy stuff made with Forge in previous games, but none ever came close to the level of detail and precision that Halo 5's mode managed to reach. The only negative that I have with Forge is that I've always preferred to get developer-made DLC maps rather than rely on the community to scratch that itch. And I still get that feeling and concern, but as the updates rolled out and people got more and more familiar with the new pieces and tricks that they could get away with, The line blurred for me somewhat. I still want those dev-made DLC maps, but if you take a look at early community-built maps that were put into matchmaking, then compare them with the newer versions that went into the multiplayer modes a few months ago, you can see a drastic improvement, and the level of detail that this mode was able to get makes me all the more excited for what we could potentially get in Infinite, especially considering that 343 will retain the knowledge of what worked well and what didn't work well going into development of the next big creation tool for Halo. Number 3. The cinematics. Say what you will about Halo 5's campaign, but I think that one of the biggest strengths came from the sheer control of colors, the cinematography, the motion capture, the faces of the characters. I think that all came together and worked in Halo 5's favor. The story wasn't exceptional in my opinion, but the cinematics are so gripping to me that I really have to take my hat off to the people involved who managed to make each individual shot look absolutely amazing. A particular favourite of mine is right at the end of the Swords of Sanghelios mission where Locke meets up with the Arbiter. The design and the background of Sanghelios is beautiful on its own, but in this cinematic, the lighting, the set dressing, oh god, all of it was completely and utterly on point. And I would have to say the same thing about the ending cinematic to the Battle of Sunayon mission where the Guardian is leaving. There's that struggle with the Pelican and Parma before it cuts to the Arbiter taking names and ending it with a call to action. But they're not perfect. There are some spots in a few cinematics that do have issues, but I think that's down to the motion capture technology. I'm not entirely sure. If anybody does know what causes these weird shaky moments, then please let me know. I think the only 2 moments in the game with this issue is the introduction to Chief and Blue Team, where the Chief runs his thumb along the AI slot in the back of his helmet, and then another later in the game where Tanaka is about to give her speech to Osiris. At least, they were the only ones that I noticed, I guess. But everything else I have to say was great. The lighting, the animation, the pacing, and the amazing facial capture is something that I have to praise. Especially when you look back on previous games and you can see how far the technology has come. I mean, let's be honest for a second here. Nathan Fillion doesn't exactly look like Nathan Fillion in ODST, does he? He looks more like a wax model of Nathan Fillion that was exposed to direct sunlight for too long. Why did I write that? That's cruel. I'm sorry, Bungie. Whereas Halo 5 showcases something that looks eerily close to the real thing, and it has me dying to see what kind of cinematic quality is going to be in Infinite. Number 4. The Warden Eternal. This is a weird one for me, but the Warden Eternal is a very weird character, and if I'm honest, since I first saw him in random screenshots prior to Halo 5 launching, I thought that this guy was just the digitized Didac for a time. At least that's what I was hoping for, and then it turned out that he was a completely new character, and I was a bit let down. I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit let down. And after playing through the story, I was also a bit let down. But the thing about the Warden is that dude looks like a Bionicle, come on. I could see this guy replace the Makuta in Mask of Light easy.
Tour of light, now so bold. But at heart, you are still just Takua.
What I'm trying to get at is that I think the design is great. I'm not a massive fan of the Forerunner floaty bits when it comes to the architecture, but I think it works quite nicely on the Warden. And that moment where you're introduced to the character for the first time and he drops down from his pod onto the floor, separating parts of his arms and legs in the process, was a very cool effect, and one that I am pretty sure was not easy to animate. There's brief moments in the story where the Warden does seem to be hinting at really interesting things. Sadly, it doesn't really go anywhere, but it does make for a tense moment where he tells the Chief that Cortana knows his real name. If there's one complaint that I had to bring up though, it's that we never got this guy as a statue or some kind of toy or an action figure. At this point, I'm a bit too old to play with toys, but if there ever was a Mega Block set where you could just build up the Warden Bionicle style, you'd better believe I'd buy that shit in a heartbeat. Number 5. The Holy Custies. Thanks to the custom browser, I found a lot of different activities that kept me busy for a while, and one of the biggest ones, for whatever reason, was raiding. I never took part in anything like clan fights, so I was never really interested in that kind of thing, despite being invited to a few clans at the time. But it was always interesting to join raids, because in almost every game, there was that one guy who took the role of the villain, intentional or otherwise, and it was really fun to take part in. I went back into my old Xbox DVR clips to showcase some of these funny moments, because every other game I joined, there was somebody in there who recognized me. And every time there was a person or people who recognized me, sometimes I would get requests to take pictures with them, then I'd get run over. Or other games where we would just stand there and then get run over. Or another time where players decided to circle me. It was It was very interesting. It was a lot of fun, and even if that stuff isn't your cup of tea, you could still find game-type classics like Infections with maps that were pretty good, but, you know, not in matchmaking, so it was all very unique. There's not really much else that I could say to sum up customs in Halo 5, but if you've got the game installed and you haven't tried them for a while, or worse, you haven't tried them at all, then please give it a go. And one day if you randomly see me in a raid or a social or anything like that, please send me a message and say hi, it's always nice to read them. That last one was a bit more personal, but I'm sure you get the idea. Anyway, those are just a few things that I enjoyed about Halo 5, but I'm very interested to know if there were things about Halo 5 that you enjoyed, or at least things that you saw as an improvement over something done in previous installments. As usual, I would like to thank all my current patrons, including GamerChat, Jay Laughlin, Curry-chan, Mr. Toenail XX, Rook, Thaddeus Hamlet, I'm pretty sure I butchered your name in the last video, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to, and Wolfric Productions. Some of you guys are even pledging more than the recommended $5, so I will try to get some higher tier rewards to you very soon, please bear with me. But that's unfortunately all I have for this week. There's no comment time because I've run out of time, so I'll get you guys next time. I need to stop saying time. Alright, I'll see you next time. God damn it!